The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good night and welcome to The Doctor Is In with me, Dr. Janothra Archer Cartwright. Thank you for joining me again on this Tuesday afternoon on Guardian Radio 96.9 for all things health, wellness, and things that pertain to the Bahamian Society. Of course, brought to you by Medical Concierge Services for all your medical health needs. Our clinic is located in the Bahamas Heart Center. We are a family medicine clinic, so children, adults, people of all ages, a variety of different services, as well as home care, microneedling, and IV vitamin therapy. Check out our website, mcsfamilymedicine.com, or give us a call, 326-1521. You can get us on WhatsApp, 432-4010, especially if you want to sign up for NHI. We'll make that extremely easy for you. And you can catch us on Facebook as well and Instagram. And I'll go over the Instagram again later. But yeah, I hope everybody's having a really good evening. I've had a super busy day, running around till the last minute and just before coming in to do this show. So it's not even Christmas yet, but Christmas is coming and those streets are still quite busy. So be careful out there. I had a really crazy experience the other day. This is why I don't try to be out too late at night, but someone asked me to go take a look at something, and we were driving back on West Bay, and there was a vehicle right on the other side of us, one of those small, really small vehicles. And I saw the police pulling up behind the vehicle from the west, and then we heard sirens coming from the east, and they kind of blocked the guy in, and an officer jumped out with a gun, and he told him to get whatever out the car. Some guys came out of the car, and there was basically like a gun about 10, 15 feet away from our car. So it's really wild out there. So be safe during this holiday season. Take care of each other, and just be careful because there's a lot going on, and this is a crazy time for a lot of people. And I don't know, we're doing well. We're in recession. I'm not sure what's happening in this country. So just be careful. Just be there. Well, tonight we're going to talk about a topic I think it's pretty interesting, and don't usually talk about, I don't think I brought this up before. We've talked about arthritis and various different things, but we're going to talk about gout. And, it's kind of in keeping with what we talked about last week or the week before, which was diabetes, which is really like a lifestyle disease. And I call these diseases of excess because usually they're related to a lot of lifestyle things. And they're usually related to foods and things that we put into our bodies. Even if you may be predisposed to having something like this, a lot of it has to do with what you do on a daily basis. So gout is one of those diseases that is very related to the foods that you put in your body. And it's really, really, really common form of inflammatory arthritis. So when we talk about arthritis, we're talking about diseases that affect our joints. And so gout is one of those. You would have heard about it. You might have heard an uncle or someone having really bad pain in his toe, his big toe. And so it's something that we've known about for a very long time. The history of gout goes all the way back into the being recognized from the time of the Egyptians over 3,000 years before BC. And so we've had records of gout being explained for a very long time. Later on, Hippocrates and those went and they did more research and they looked at it. And it's just been something that's been there for a very long time and really has been examined quite well. And so with gout, it usually affects one joint at a time, unlike our common osseous, which a lot of people have, which is like the wear and tear of arthritis. But with gout, you tend to see it in one particular joint. Specifically, it usually starts in the big toe. We all know it from being in the big toe. And so it would be like one joint at a time. But I've seen people have gouty flare-ups or, acute episodes of gout in other joints as well. And there are times where I talked about the word flare-up are the times when that disease really gets worse and the symptomatology gets worse. And so people go through these kind of acute phases and then they may be treated and they seem to get better and they go into remission. But once you have gout, it kind of can always flare up. And that's why it's important to kind of keep abreast of all of that. So people have bouts of symptoms and that's how they get gouty arthritis. And this can be really a bad form of arthritis. There's really no cure for gout. So it's really based on management and treatment. And so this is something you have to manage over time. And there's a lot of different strategies. We have medications that do that, but there are a lot of lifestyle stuff as well that we can do for persons who have gout. So what are the signs and the symptoms of having gout? Gout usually starts really, really sudden. So people will be feeling really well. They won't have any problems. So it's not like a gradual thing. It just, this intense pain kind of starts. And it can last for days, for weeks, and then it can go away for quite a long time, weeks, months, even years. People can be symptom-free from gout. So it usually starts with this flare, and it usually starts in one single joint over time and is often found in the big toe, as we said. Along with the big toe, other common sites would be some of the other toes, the ankle, the knee joint can also have like this gouty flare. And it's defined by a lot of pain. It's usually very, very intense pain. People will come in like near tears sometimes if they would have a flare of gout, or you can just tell sometimes that these people are in a lot of pain. They can be swelling at the area or the joint area where the gout is flaring up. Redness can be seen, especially if you're like a fair skin, you can see a lot of redness. And then usually that joint will seem extremely warm or hot to touch. And you really want to get that checked because you want to make sure it's not like a septic arthritis or an infection that's the arthritis. But if you're known to have gout, then we know what's causing it. So gout is caused by a condition called hyperuricemia. So what happens is there is a buildup of uric acid inside the blood. And when these levels become extremely, extremely high, it breaks down into a product called purines. And this is found in your body and in the foods that you eat. But if you have too much of this uric acid in your body, it forms crystals. And these crystals can build up in the joints, in the fluids, and in the tissues within the body. And this is what really causes that really bad pain that you feel. And so uricemia doesn't always cause gout, but gouty symptoms are usually seen with hyperuricemia. So where I found with that is that you can find on testing. So someone's had a lot of uric acid in their blood or uricemic in their blood, but they may not have symptoms of gout. But if you were to test someone with gout, you would find that their levels are actually very, very high. So not all people manifest the symptoms, but the uric acid seems to be related to the gout. And so this is really what kind of causes and spurs the gout to be had. And there's some people who are more inclined to have gout than others. And so there's a likelihood of having gout if you have certain risk factors. So, it's not everybody who would get gout, but there are certain things that will predispose you or make you more likely to get gout. So being male, so we usually see gout a lot in men. Recently, I've seen some women, so don't count the women out. But a lot of times men who are suffering from gout. So just being male is an increased risk. Those who are obese, so if you are very severely overweight, your risk for gout also increases. And if you have certain health conditions, one of them being congestive heart failure. So patients with heart failure, they would be a little more prone to gout and the symptoms of gout. Persons with hypertension, anyone with insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, which is like early hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, early signs of those things, diabetes, and persons with poor kidney disease. And so the kidneys are usually what filters the blood. So if you have a buildup of something in the blood, if your kidneys aren't working, that'll only make it worse. So if you're prone to get gout and you get kidney disease, then that is really big risk factors. Certain medications can also cause you to get gout, such as certain diuretics. And maybe this is because of the diuretics really cause a lot of fluid to be released from the body. So it could increase your concentration of these uric acid crystals, uric acid inside the body. And so I guess if you're over dialyzed, or you're taking some of these diuretics, then that could increase your chances of getting gout or having a gouty flare-up. Drinking alcohol. So those of you who have gout, and we have this conversation with all of our gout patients about the effects of alcohol and gout. So those two are quite related. The fact that if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, you can really intensify your flares. And the risk of gout as alcohol intake goes up. So the more alcohol that you take into your body, the more chances that you're actually going to get a gouty flare. So you'll see a lot of people that come in that say, well, I'm having gout, or I'm feeling, my toe is hurting or whatever. And you ask them, like, what were you doing on the weekend? And a lot of them would tell you, like, I was doing a lot of drinking, blah, blah, blah. It flared up. So people tend to know, once they have gout, they know what the triggers are, but people do love a certain lifestyle, and it's really hard to get people to get out of that lifestyle. So it's really good to not pick up those habits early on, because you can see all of the health related problems that are related to that. So if you're eating foods that are going to be high in fructose, so any type of sugar, so you have a high sugar diet, it will, end up, triggering your gout as well. So if you also have a diet that is high in the purines, remember we said purines was the what the uric acid was turned into. So if you already have a lot of those purines inside of your body, then you're going to have a lot of breakdown to uric acid. And so the purine-rich foods include red meat, organ meats, so that's like liver, for those of you that eat liver and stuff like that. Some kinds of seafood, such as anchovies, sardines, mussels, scallops, trout, and tuna. So those foods are also really big triggers for persons who have gout. And so you can see it does kind of limit your diet a bit. But if you've had gouty pain, then you really understand that you want to take a lot of those things out of your diet, having really a high content of those things. So if you listen or if you followed the show, you know that I do push like a moderate diet. So I don't really believe in taking anything natural out of your diet, but to moderate how much of those things that you put in, it tends to be a healthier lifestyle for most people. So you want to look at how much of these things that you're putting into your body. My grandfather actually had gout, and he was a really big meat eater. So he thought I was a cowboy. So he was from Rumpke, and he lived on the island, and he brought cows in, and he wore a cowboy hat and felts and stuff like that. So he ate a lot of meat, but he also suffered from gout. All right, so those foods that are high in your purines, they're going to trigger a gouty crisis. So how do we tell that a person has gout? Well, first, if you have the symptoms that we talked about, you want to go in and have that physical exam. Sometimes we do x-rays, we do blood tests, and we can also kind of diagnose it just clinically, as we say, by examination of that particular joint. And if it's hot and swollen and painful, and then lab testing finds out that there are quite a bit of uric acid in the affected joint, then we have a good idea that it's gout. We also can do blood tests where we look at the uric acid inside the blood as well. We use that as an indication if we're not going to take like a sample from the joint itself. So we'll be able to tell if it's gout. And usually just by the way that it would present, we can differentiate that from regular, like osteoarthritis or any other arthritis. And for those people considering rheumatoid arthritis or, one of the autoimmune diseases, then, there would be more workup that needs to be done, and we would take a thinking about that. But the presentation really gives us a really big idea if it could be gout or not. And so who should be diagnosed and treated? Well, it should be diagnosed by a doctor, and sometimes it will take a team of doctors, like a rheumatologist or an orthopedic doctor, or your family physician will be a part of that. And we really look at the signs and the symptoms and the inflammatory process in itself. You can see there's an underlying thread to what causes a lot of these inflammatory diseases. And so we have doctors that also specialize in these types of diseases. They're called rheumatologists. We don't have a lot in country, but we do have some. And we can, if we're not convinced it's one thing or the other, then your doctor may say, hey, I'm going to refer you to a rheumatologist, and we will let them take a look and see exactly what it is, because the treatment modality for different types of arthritis are so different. So not all joint pain is the same because they're all quite different. It's important to get the right diagnosis so that you can get the right treatment, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, quite a different treatment plan, involves steroids and some other really drugs. Osteoarthritis is more maintenance, treatment along the way. And then, of course, gout. Gout has a treatment all to itself. So how do we treat gout? How do we effectively manage this medical problem? So there are different strategies that we may use. It really depends on the person, but we try to manage the flares or the gout pain. And for consistent flares, we tend to use our NSAIDs, like our ibuprofen. Sometimes really bad, we require using steroids and anti-inflammatory medications and drugs such as colchicine. So if you have an initial flare-up, there's a medication called colchicine that we would prescribe. We would do like an increased dose, and then over a few days, it would make it a lot better. But what you want to do is you want preventative care. So you want to prevent having future flares, and this really requires making those lifestyle adjustments. That's what we're about, preventative care. So there are ways to prevent having flare-ups of gout, and it really involves your diet and your lifestyle, losing weight, limiting alcohol, eating less purine-rich foods like red meat and organ meats, as we discussed. And that helps to prevent future attacks and changing or stopping medications that may be involved. So if you're not having that kind of diet, if you're a physician and take a look at what all medication that you might be on that may be leading to you having gout or a gouty flare. Because as we said, not everybody who has an increase in the uric acid actually will end up with symptoms of gout. And for some people, if it's medication induced, that's something where you can look at the medication, maybe have it changed to something that's less likely to induce gout. So it's really important to be comfortable with your doctor to have those types of conversation because they are extremely important and it could really be a game changer in terms of your treatment plan. You also want to prevent tophi, which are little deposits that happen inside the joint, and they cause a lot of dysfunction and just kind of, change the architecture of the joint itself. And also, your kidney stones, which could develop as well, which are also caused by chronically high levels of uric acid. So how would you decrease that? Well, the tophi, which are hard uric acid deposits underneath the skin, for people with frequent acute flare-ups, they tend to happen. So if you're constantly having flare-ups, and your uric acid is extremely high, this is when you develop those types of deposits, and they create little nodules underneath the skin and near the joints. And you really have to look at preventative therapy in order to lower the uric acid levels in the blood. And it may mean considering taking more long-term medications like allopurinol, which would be something that you took daily instead of just with some other drugs that they use. But allopurinol is probably the most famous one, and that's the one that you hear people who will take consistently, and that's for persons who are having quite a few flare-ups that haven't been controlled over time. That's going to be a really big thing for them. So how do you manage your gout and improve your quality of life? We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about improving your quality of life if you have gout, and just more preventative ideas of how you can live without something like an arthritis like gouty arthritis. So we'll be back with the doctors in just a moment.
Always on the go? Missed the show? You can now listen to Guardian Radio talk shows anytime, anywhere on Spotify and YouTube by searching Guardian Radio 96.9 FM or by entering the name of your favorite show. You can also listen by logging on to GuardianTalkRadio.com and clicking on the podcast tab. Guardian Radio, continuing to provide you with fresh news and smart talk anywhere, anytime, all day.
Girl, you see how Cora eye look funny, all black up yesterday?
But she say she bumped into a wall when she's running after the churn dam.
Yeah, but last Saturday you see her arm was all black and blue, right?
So what you saying? You think something wrong between her and Jack?
I ain't sure, but you know Jack is a jealous man. I hear him and Cora last Friday. I hear him say he hear Cora have eyes for Junior.
Now you know that ain't true. Cora had them churn and go to church every Sunday. So what you think we should do?
I think we should report Jack, you know. Cora don't say nothing, but silence hides violence, and we don't want to line up in the cemetery.
Not me. I ain't getting in nobody business. Then Jack come after me and I land up next to Cora.
No, man, we could call a text Crime Stopper. And remember, we can even get some grocery money for our tip.
Remind me again, how does this work?
We can call them in Miami at 328-TIPS or 328-8477. Or when we in the island, call toll-free at 300-TIPS or 300-8477. And if you don't have no minutes, use the Crack Crime Bahamas app and we could text them and the messages get on mix up before it leave your phone so nobody can know what you saying.
So what we waiting on then? Let's go earn some grocery money.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to the Doctors In with me, Dr. Denilthra Archer Carre. Thank you for joining us tonight and listening for all things health, wellness, and things that pertain to the Bahamian society. We're talking about gout, gouty arthritis, a really inflammatory problem, really lifestyle related. We talked about what lifestyles were related to that, some of the risk factors. Just an interesting fact that gout, like many other diseases, one of those diseases that they treated by bloodletting. So that was a really kind of popular way of treating a lot of diseases that day, because in those days they didn't really understand what was causing certain problems, but they realized that a lot of the issues were related to concentrations of things in the blood. They didn't really know what they were, but they knew that. And so bloodletting was one that they used for quite a few years. And it took a while to use that. But if we go back, we can see that there were some people in ancient Greece that were using medications like colchicine that we talked about as far back as 2,000 years ago. And so it was used first for the treatment of gout by a Byzantine physician, Alexander of Tralles, around 600 AD. And not long after that, colchicine fell out of use for many years, and it was rediscovered by an Australian physician, Baron Atten de Strock, in mid-1700s. Perhaps the most popular and notable user of the early colchicine, who used the therapy. And of course, we still use it today for gouty flare. So just a little bit of some historical information about it, because it's such an old disease. And it's history in terms of that. So we were talking a little bit about what we use for gout. We're also going to open the phone lines in case we have any questions. And we're going to talk about how you can manage gout and improve your lifestyle. How you manage gout and improve your lifestyle is going to be one of the things. So our contact information is 323-6232, 325-4316. 325-4259. If you want to jump in, if you have a question that you want to talk about with us tonight. And so how do we do that? So of course, related to just about everything as well for a lot of people to do is just basically our healthy lifestyle. So avoiding the foods that really trigger gout is going to be one of the number one things that you're going to do. And we talked about the foods that are high in purines, such as our rich red meats, organic meats, and seafoods. And you want to limit your alcohol intake as well. We talked about having a balanced and proper diet, a moderate diet. So that's what it is. So I understand why a lot of people think, red meat may not be good for them, especially if they have something like gout. But you have to understand, red meat is okay for a lot of people, and it's really quantity. So you'll have people who are just less tolerant to things. All right. So the CDC's arthritic program provides 5 self-management strategies for managing arthritis and its symptoms. And these also are very helpful for persons who are suffering from gout. And so self-management skills are extremely, because it's you who's going to be home with the gout a lot of times. So if you can learn to manage some of these things on your own, then you're less likely to have to come into the doctors often. You might also avoid having visits to the accident emergency if you're having severe pain. So self-management includes learning about the disease itself, about arthritis and chronic disease such as gout. So understanding how it affects your life is extremely important and increases your confidence in controlling your symptoms and living well. So there are educational self-programs that you can find on different websites that can just help you to understand. And we're doing this tonight to help educate people and you if you're listening. And so it makes being able to deal with this disease and manage the disease a lot easier when the patient has a good understanding of what's going on. Getting a physical activity, of course, as recommended, 150 minutes per week, or at least moderate to physical exercise is going to be very helpful for your joints. You want to do moderate, low impact exercise and activities, including walking, swimming, biking, are going to be really good. So we're surrounded by sun, sand, and sea, but don't actually swim. So maybe one day we'll have swimming pools in all of our schools so that at least every child in the Bahamas learns how to swim. And that's a really great exercise activity because it can be a free activity. We're surrounded by the sea. So if all of our kids know how to swim right there, you don't have to pay for a gym. You can go swimming. All right, so the physical activity is going to be really great. And physical activity is really good for relieving pain. And so that's a pain reducer on its own. And it also reduces the disability of the arthritis itself. So some people become disabled because of various arthritis. And physical activity actually improves your outcome for that. So, and improves your mobility and chances to move around. So yes, you want to take any local classes and be, moving around as much as you can, all right? Of course, talking to your doctor is extremely important. You want to play an active role in your actual management and control of your own arthritis. So you want to make your appointments regularly so that you don't miss, even if you say, hey, I'm in remission and I am not having a gouty flare, it may be good if your doctor especially wants to check up on your uric acid levels. So make those important and make sure, because it is a chronic disease like diabetes or hypertension or heart disease. So it's not something that's going to go away. It's just going to have flares back and forth. You want to lose weight. So for people who are overweight or obese, if you have any type of arthritis or gout, losing weight really decreases the pressure that's going to be on your joints. So from exercising to even just moving around, or you're going to have less pressure and wear and tear on your joint. And that's really going to be really, really helpful in the long run, especially those weight-bearing jumps, especially your hips and your knees. So you want to reach a really healthy weight so that pain relief is manageable and improves with function and slows the progression of the arthritis. So we can't stop it, we can't get rid of it, but we can slow the progression over time, which means that you won't get to severe disease as quickly if you are doing some of those things, right? So you don't want to get there. You want to do your preventative methods, but if you do get it, then all right, good night online, Citizens for a Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We see you out there listening online. That's on our Facebook page, The Doctor's In, with me, Dr. D. Archer. You also want to, joint injuries can also worsen any types of arthritis. So you want to choose activities that are going to really be easy on your joints, like walking, biking, cycling, very low impact activities, and have a lower risk of injury. So you don't want anything where you can end up twisting or putting pressure on the joint. So you want to do really like exercises that are safe with arthritis. And you want to start slow. So a great way to do safe exercises to point out is to enjoy the benefits of increased physical activity. We use an acronym called SMART, and that is start low, go slow. That's the S. So you want to start low. So you're not going to try and run a marathon. You're going to start low and you're going to start slow. You want to modify your activity and you want to try to stay active. So you want to change up things, not stop things. So if you have arthritis or something that's impeding your exercise, you don't want to completely stop it, but you want to modify maybe what you're doing so that you can just, do it in a different way. And activities should be joint friendly, as we talked about, joint friendly activities, and recognize safe places and ways to be active. And that's very important, finding a safe place, a safe area, and, not an area where you might hurt yourself or twist your ankle or something like that. And the T, so that's SMART, SMART, talk to a health professional or a certified exercise specialist. So if you need help, you should reach out in order to do that. So when you're starting slower, you're increasing your physical activity, start slowly, pay attention to how your body tolerates that exercise. Arthritis may take more time for their body to adjust to a new level activity. And if you are not active, start with a very small amount of activity, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, 2 times a day, and then add a little time, such as about 10 minutes. So exercise, you don't have to jump into a 30-minute routine. You want to start with a few minutes, see how well you tolerate that. And then after maybe a few times of doing that, a few weeks, you can add it about 10 minutes at a time, and it allows your time and your body to adjust to the exercise and the level before adding more activity. So this is a great way, not just for persons with arthritis or gout, to get into activities if you haven't been doing it for a very long time. You don't have to start with 30 minutes or an hour. You can start with a few minutes, and you can build up on top of that. You want to modify your activity with arthritis, symptoms increasing, trying to stay active. So if your symptoms increase or fatigue, you may have good days and bad days. And so you want to try to modify the activity that you're doing depending on that. So, don't let one bad day kind of get in your way. Modify maybe what you're doing. Instead of maybe having a light jog that day, you just go for a walk, or you bicycle, or you take a swim. Just change up your activity. And we talked about those activities that are basically joint friendly, like walking, biking, water aerobics, or dancing. All right. So if you have a nice flat surface and you want to just do some dancing, that's a good activity. These activities are low risk injuries, and they do not twist or pound unless you're doing really energetic dancing. Right. But there's some dancing that's, kind of slow and rhythmic. So you can do that, but that will give you some level of activity. So there's different ways that you can introduce exercise into all of that. And so recognizing safe spaces would be safety and important, starting and maintaining an activity. So if your current activity, you're not sure how to start that, then you want to reach out for persons that would help you. Physical activity programs, exercise classes may be a good option. If you plan to direct your own activity, find safe places to do that activity. And that goes a lot too with not just your bodily safety, but, harm in any way. For those of you that are walking on the streets, make sure that they're well-lit streets and that these are places that, a lot of people frequent. You don't want to go too late. As you can see, we're in the period of time when the sun goes down fairly early around here. I was surprised. I think the sun was going down as I was coming home. It was barely 6 o'clock. So, evening time at this time of year is probably go out there and to safely do walking unless you can get off early from work, maybe like 4 o'clock. So try to be safe, all right? And you don't want to go too early in the morning where it's not safe. And you don't want to go on a rocky path that's going to cause you to slip or hurt yourself. So all of these are the things that you take into consideration because you don't want to go out there and exercise and make your situation work. So what activities should you be doing? Low impact aerobic activities. Mainly you want to gradually get up to that 150 minutes or 2 hours and 30 minutes a week. And that's moderate intensity exercise. And in addition to any aerobic activities, you should also do some muscle strengthening. And that's really good for patients with arthritis because it helps to strengthen both the muscles around the joint and, just works the ligaments. So you want to do some muscle strengthening exercises on top of, and you can sit down with your doctor or your physiotherapist, and usually we can kind of guide you through that. Question online, Dr. D, does gout affect men and women or just men? Yes, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but it can affect both men and women, but men are more prone to gout. But I have seen women with gout. Surprisingly, lately, I've seen quite a few women with gout. And interestingly, I think a lot of them said their fathers may have had gout. So, but yes, it tends to be something that men are plagued with, but it doesn't mean that women cannot get it. All right. So that's with gouts. And so flexible exercises such as stretching, yoga, these are also really important with people who have arthritis. Many people with arthritis have joint stiffness, and so it's very difficult for them to do their daily tasks. So if they do a lot more strengthening exercises, that makes things a lot better. So doing daily flexibility exercises can maintain your range of motion. So that means that you can move your joints a lot easier. and it can make doing household tasks a lot easier, your hobbies, and you'll be able to just have a better quality of life. So these are things that just make your life a little bit better. Balancing exercises like walking backwards, standing on one foot, Tai Chi are all important for persons who are at risk of falling. So you want to train yourself or condition your body to decrease your risks. And you can do that exercise 3 days per week if you're at risk of falling. And if you can also do balancing exercises in group classes. So you can ask if you have a trainer, or if you're going to the gym, you can ask about exercises that will help you with your balance. And do if you have pain whilst you're exercising. Well, it's normal to have a little pain and stiffness and swelling, especially if you've just started exercising, if you just started a program, if you haven't been doing it for a very long period of time. And so it takes usually about 6 to 8 weeks for your joints to get used to any kind of new activity. So we don't want you to kind of give up the minute that you have it, but you got to stick with the activity and the program, and it will result in long-term pain relief. So eventually you'll find that it actually improves your pain over time, but it takes a while to do it. It's just like most habits. It takes 6 to 8 weeks before you can really see the positive effects. So there are a few tips that you can do to manage your pain if you are having some pain during your physical activity, or until the pain improves. You want to maybe modify that exercise program by exercising less frequently, fewer days out of the week, or a shorter period of time. So maybe you went too fast. You started off doing a few minutes and now you're doing 30 minutes and you're getting a lot of pain or excess stress on your joints. So maybe you want to pull back a little bit. Maybe you weren't quite ready to entertain that. So you can go back a little bit and then get your body tuned into exercising a bit more before you move on to a higher amount of time or increased intensity. You want to try different types of exercise that puts less pressure on your joints, as we talked about. So switch from walking to water aerobics if the walking is not working out. If you still feel like you have more pressure on your joints, then you might need to switch the activity. And of course, one that a lot of people miss out is doing a proper warm up and warm down before exercise. And I like to do a good warm up because I don't like the crampy, bad feelings afterwards. That was a while back. I was warming up, and the person that I was working out with, they were like, "Nah, I don't need to do that. I'm just gonna go for it. I don't think I need it." And like a few days later, like 2 days later, they were like all torn up. Like they were feeling so much pain and stuff. And although I was a little sore, it wasn't that kind of soreness at all, you know. And I knew that this person hadn't exercised for a while, but they were just like, I'm just gonna do whatever. So it's really important to do warm-up exercises before and after. And you can find cool-down exercises on the Arthritis Foundation Walk with Ease exercise. There are videos out there that can help you with these exercises about how to warm up, warm down, and to do various stretches. So there's a wealth of information that's out there for everybody. And you want to exercise. You should be able to carry on a conversation whilst exercising if it's just a light exercise. And you want to make sure you have good fitting shoes, especially if you're diabetic. You want to make sure that you're wearing the proper shoes. So if you are having pain after exercise, there are a few reasons why you should come and see the doctor. And that is if you have a pain that is sharp or stabbing and constant, a pain that causes you to limp. So you were walking fine and then you obviously started limping. Pain that lasts more than 2 hours after exercise, or it gets worse at night. These are all kind of red flags on why you may need to have a consultation with your physician. Pain or swelling that does not get better with rest, medication, hot or cold packs. So you basically tried everything and this pain is just getting worse and worse. That's a red flag that you may need to get that checked. Pull something or strain something, so you want to get that seen. If there's large increases or swelling in the joints, if it feels red hot at all, then you want to definitely get that checked out. And so join in with us, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. We'll take one more quick break and we will wrap up our topic on gout.
Loss of family members is very isolating, and people who have experienced loss appreciate when others have shared their grief. If you can't be there in person, go to the Nassau Guardian's website online at thenassauguardian.com and visit our obituary link. The Nassau Guardian's interactive obituary link allows you to read the funeral announcement, express condolences, or place photos on the online guest book for 1 full year. Losing a loved one is painful, but that pain isn't the worst thing to happen. Friends, loved ones, colleagues, and neighbors who ignore the loss compound the pain. Should the bereaved family wish to place the obituary and photos on our obituary site, just contact the Guardian's funeral industry partners or the Nassau Guardian. Remember, there isn't one magic right thing to say to someone experiencing loss that will make the loss less painful or easier to bear. The Nassau Guardian's obituary link, available online at thenassauguardian.com. The Nassau Guardian has delivered news and views that matter since 1844. Now, the Nassau Guardian app is available at your fingertips. Download it at Google Play or the App Store. Get the best in news and commentary from the most trusted newspaper in the country with the Nassau Guardian app.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Hello and good night, and welcome back to the Doctors In with me, Dr. Janothra Archikara. Thank you for joining with us for all things health and wellness and things that pertain to the Bahamian society. Our topic tonight was gout, gouty arthritis, a very painful inflammatory problem. We talked about who was at risk. We talked about men, people who were obese, people with diabetes and hypertension, persons that ate a lot of foods high in purines, and a list of different things. And so we're going to talk, as we wrap up our topic tonight, we're just going to talk about what that gouty diet looks like, what you should be doing, and what are the dietary goals when we think about gout. So you want to achieve a healthy weight and good eating habits, and you want to avoid some of the foods that we talked about that was really high in purines. You also want to include foods that are going to control gout and the uric acid levels. So weight loss involves, decreasing your weight if you're overweight. You also want to look at the complex carbs, so eating more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, which provide a complex carbohydrates, and avoiding foods that are high in fructose, corn syrup, and limiting consumption of naturally sweet fruit juices. You want to stay really, really well hydrated, and you want to eat proper fats that cut back on your saturated fats from red meat, poultry, and high dietary products. You also want to include protein, which are your lean meats and some poultry, some low-fat dairy, and lentils into it. We have some recommendations, but we have a caller. Caller, you on the air?
Yes, good night, Dr. Archer.
Hi, good night.
Information, right? And so, when I listen to you, it's always something that I could remember. And so I've been reading nutritional prescription healing for over 30 years, right? And so this, I just automatically, my mind ran on calcification, right, of the joints, right? And also, I think the vascular system, some of the arteries, they actually
Yeah,
absorb a
you
lot
mean
of calcium.
calcification of the arteries, right?
Yeah, it could happen, but you know, you was talking about gout. But what I'm saying is, then I really wanted to find a natural cure, and I remember reading it was sorrel, cucumber, and I think spinach. You know, it was one of those. It was three of those combined together in a smoothie, and they're saying that vitamin K impedes the calcification of the calcium phosphate, or it's a pyrophosphate. But I don't know what, but I just know it's a calcium phosphate. The pyro, I just got familiar with that prefix, but that obviously means some phosphorus and calcium compound, right? But the calcification of the joints which was mentioned in the book of cucumber, spinach, and sorrel. Actually,
Yeah, I think you mean the
deposits.
crystallization of the joints.
Yeah, calcification. That's what they're saying. But how the calcium crystallizes, and they were saying that these sorrel, spinach, and the other one that I called, right? They actually help because they're rich in vitamin K. They actually help impede the calcification and gout in the joints. And so.
Well, it's uric acid usually will be what crystallizes in the joint, so it might be just slightly different for gout. But I get the principles of kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah. So I was trying to something came to my mind, and I'm foggy on it. Does oxalic acid have anything to do with it also? Because I came across that sometime very long ago.
Yeah, I think that may be a slightly different process. But with
but
this
I know
one,
you don't get any of your doctors. I eat up all the flesh of the earth. So this is how I know. I got a joke for you before I go. Because my mind's out of the classroom, as I straight up with the broom. So they lied and told us that we were cannibals in Africa, which is BS. All of those antelopes and animals running around in Africa, we know they were starving in Europe. Give thanks. Let's open up our eyes to the lies. Give thanks.
All right, thank you, caller. Always appreciate your calls. Yeah, with the gout, it's the uric acid that kind of crystallizes in that process. But just so that we all know that there are some foods, we talked about what you stay away from, which were your organ meats. You see, intense amount of seafood, your high purine vegetables such as asparagus, alcohol, mostly beer and distilled liquids, sugary foods and beverages. But vitamin C is really, really good at lowering uric acid levels. So like 500 milligrams as a supplement to any medication that you're on, or just like a daily supplement, is probably going to be really, really helpful for you. I find that vitamin C does a lot of amazing things, and that's why I kind of stand by IV vitamin therapy as well. So your coffee drinkers in moderation, not excessive coffee drinking, of course, but coffee, regular caffeinated drinks may be associated with a reduced risk of gout. Drinking coffee may not be appropriate if you have other medical conditions, so you want to talk to your doctor about that. So if you don't have any medical issues that would kind of like why you shouldn't be drinking coffee, it could be something that is helpful in your just moderately in your diet. And then there is some evidence that eating cherries is associated with reduced risk of gouty attacks. So if we look at it, there are usually some forms of foods in nature that are helpful in a lot of these chronic diseases. And this is why it's so important to have that balanced diet and eating a broad variety of foods. So if you have a very narrow palate, you're not going to get all these different nutrients, because if you don't eat cherries, if you don't eat this, if you do that, so broadening up the palate when it comes to natural foods is going to be important. And some of the building blocks, some of the vitamins that are contained in some of these food products are really where what happens, where some of the nutrients come from that help you to reduce inflammation in your body. And we've talked about an anti-inflammatory diet in the past, which is really the backbone of your diet and reducing your risk for any of these inflammatory diseases, any of these chronic diseases. If you were to live by an anti-inflammatory diet, you would probably reduce your risk for all of these things. And so just kind of a sample, because you can go online and you can look at different menus and different selections of foods that you can go by that will give you what a gouty diet should look like. I found a great sample online, and this is at the Mayo Clinic, and they talk about what a typical day would be like for someone who has gout. So for breakfast, they suggest having some type of whole grain unsweetened cereal with either skim or low-fat milk if you're a milk drinker, a fresh cup of strawberries, coffee, and some water. As you can see, that's a really light what most humans are eating, but whole grains, unsweetened cereal. So not the cereal that you buy in the box at in the food store. Usually these will be your whole grains that you have to like cook. And usually it'll be natural or organic greens, right? So lunch, roasted chicken, a slice of whole grain, a roll with mustard, mixed salad with vegetables, a tablespoon of nuts, balsamic vinegar, olive oil dressing, skimmed low-fat milk or water. Very simple food choices that are actually extremely healthy and really good for someone who has arthritis or gout. For an afternoon snack, they mentioned a fresh cup of cherries and a glass of water. For a dinner, this person had a roasted salmon, just 3 to 4 ounces, so very small cut of meat, roasted steamed green beans, a half cup of whole grain pasta with olive oil, lemon pepper, a cup of water, low-fat yogurt, 1 cup of fresh melon, and a caffeine-free beverage such as a herbal tea. And so if you were to live by a diet like this, if you were to follow a gouty diet that limits your uric acid production, it's elimination. So gout is a diet, the gouty diet actually lowers your uric acid. So this should decrease the number of flares that you would have, and you would have a lot more of a productive life. You would use less medication and have less doctor visits. That sounds pretty amazing. So why aren't people sticking to this type of diet? Because it's very hard to get into healthy eating. It takes a while, and just like your exercise, it's something you have to do over a period of time in order to get your body used to it. Same thing with cutting down sugar. All of those things take time. So if you're willing to put the effort in, there are ways to get to a really good endpoint where you can manage a lot of your chronic diseases, a lot of times medicine-free, or on very minimal amounts of medication. But it takes a little work from you. We can only give you the advice and encourage you as much as possible. So, come in, get a consultation, speak with your physician. If you don't have a doctor, feel free to contact us, 326-1521 at Medical Concierge Services. We'll be willing to let you be a part of our family there and help you with whatever you need. So I want to thank everybody for listening in tonight. Just like that, the show is over. We try to make medicine as interesting as possible. And so thank you for listening to our topic on gout tonight. We want you to stay safe out there, Bahamas, but try to have a good time. We know this is a crazy post-COVID time, and we want to enjoy ourselves, but we want to do that responsibly and safely, and try to keep our diets as moderate as we can. We'll see you all next week on The Doctor's In with me, Dr. D. Archer, brought to you by Medical Concierge Services. Good night.